Hey, welcome back to the channel. So today's going to be a little bit different than the videos I usually do. I did a video recently where I talked about some of the tips and tricks that I use in my videos. I'll put a link here to that video. And after that, a lot of you asked me what my setup looks like. So today I'm going to show you what gear I use and what kind of setup I use to edit my videos. So here we go.
My boss says he can eat 50 eggs, he can eat 50 eggs.
So I'll have links down in the description to anything that I talk about in this video. And as always, if you have any questions, leave those down in the comment section. I also have videos on some of this gear, and if there is an associated video, I'll put a link up here to that video. And with all that out of the way, let's get into it. So the first thing I want to talk about is my camera, and I'm using the Panasonic Lumix G7. I absolutely freaking love this camera. It's capable of 4K at 30 frames per second or 24 frames per second and 1080p at 60, 30, and 24. It's got a fully articulating flip out screen so you can see yourself while you're recording, and this camera does pretty much everything that I could want in a camera. When I got it with the kit lens. It's the 14 to 42 millimeter kit lens. Steal of a deal. I definitely recommend this camera. So as good as the kit lens is on this camera, I decided to up my game a little bit, and I got the Panasonic 25 millimeter f1.7 lens. This lens is fantastic. You can get some very crisp, clear video. It requires less light than the kit lens does, and I am completely thrilled. I always heard about how a lens can make all the difference in the world when you're shooting video and photos, and I'm a true believer in that and definitely recommend this lens. So to talk about lighting, for my main lighting, I'm using two Limo Studio box lights. I got these very early on in my channel's history, and I'm kind of laughing because I'm going to put a link up here to a video, an unboxing that I did. It's a very old video and it's pretty embarrassing, but I'm going to put it up here anyway. The only thing I did was I swapped out the bulbs that came with it with LED corncob bulbs. I'll link those down in the description as well. And these things work great. Those bulbs that came with it, they were flickering a little bit. Corncob bulbs are great. So my microphone setup is a lavalier mic, and I'm going to cheat on this because I can never remember this model number. It's the Audio-Technica ATR3350IS, and it's just a basic lavalier mic. I have it stuck up under my shirt. I fold up some masking tape into triangles, stick it to my chest so it's close to my mouth, but you can't see it clipped on anywhere. It's a basic mic, but it works really well. Now I have that mic plugged into a Zoom H1N audio recorder. This thing is phenomenal. This lets you record an MP3 or WAV. So you can plug in an external mic like I am, or you can use the two stereo mics that are on the unit. It runs off AA batteries, uses a micro SD card for the storage, and I love this thing. I'm getting much better audio quality than I was plugging directly into the camera, even though this camera has pretty good preamps. So that's all my basic gear. And then for some of my other shots, I use some other things. Like the next thing I'm going to talk about is a Zekti 15.7-inch carbon fiber slider. This is a small portable slider. I can throw it in my bag and take it with me. It works really well. It's just a manual slider. It doesn't have any pulleys or anything, but it's pretty smooth, and with a little bit of practice you can get some pretty good shots, especially if you record in at 60 frames per second and then slow that down to 30 or 24 depending on what kind of video you're doing. Works out really well. Now that slider doesn't have any mount for your camera, and I want something that could rotate and tilt and everything, so I got the Pergear ball head. This thing works really great. It's a really affordable ball head, rotates all the way around. You can lift it up or down. It's full articulation of this thing. It holds my G7 just fine, and it works really well. I'm really happy with this, and it's super affordable. It's a lot cheaper than some of the name brand ones. So for some of my tilting and panning shots, I wanted a fluid head to get that much more smooth pan, but I couldn't afford something like a Manfrotto, so I got the Pengshi fluid head. This thing is really nice. It's probably not as smooth as a more expensive one, but it's much more affordable, and I've been able to get some really good shots. Again, it probably requires a little bit more patience than a more expensive one, but it's definitely much better than the stock head that's going to be on your tripod, and you can get some super smooth, silky shots with it. For my tripod, I'm just using a generic tripod that I got at a thrift store. If you watch my channel, you know I love thrift stores. Picked this one up. It's working out just fine for me. So that's a tripod, but I also use a monopod for some of my shots, and I use the Manfrotto 3245 monopod. It's a pretty basic monopod, but it works really well. And I use either the fluid head or that ball head that I talked about on there and get some pretty decent shots with that. Honestly, I don't use the monopod all that much, but when I do use it, this one works fine. So that about covers everything that I use to actually record my videos and record the B-roll and everything. So now I want to talk a little bit about my editing setup, because a lot of people have asked about that as well. Okay, so this is it. This is where I do all my editing. I have a monitor, a great headset, a keyboard and mouse, and a custom PC that I built. Now that monitor is the LG 27UK600W. It's a 27-inch 4K IPS monitor. This monitor is great. I love it. It's a super clear image. Now I don't know about the color accuracy or anything. I don't have like a spider to measure that, but to my naked eye, the color reproduction looks really good on this monitor. I got this not too long ago. I swapped out another 4K monitor that I had, and I've been really happy with this one so far. So next thing I wanted to talk about is the headset that I use for editing, and I'm using the AKG M220 Red. Now Massdrop sent this out to me a little while ago, and I fell in love with this headset. I've used it to edit my last several videos. I'm gonna be using it for a long time coming. I love this headset. It's super comfortable, super lightweight, and it's self-adjusting, so when you put it on, it just adjusts to your head. You don't have to go and mess around with it. I absolutely love that part. It uses this thing called an open back design. Now, I honestly thought this was a little bit gimmicky when I first heard about it, but I am a true believer now. So a lot of companies use a closed back design, so the actual cans that go over your ears are completely enclosed and sealed off. This one uses an open back design where that back is open and kind of lets the sound flow out, and I'm a true believer in this. It sounds a lot more natural to me than, you know, kind of being in an enclosed chamber, having those cans over your ears and just feeling like you're isolated. And it also works great in my environment because I edit in my family room while my wife and son are in there, and this way I can very clearly hear the audio coming from the computer. It's completely loud, totally crisp, but then I can also hear them when they want to ask me questions, so I can talk to them while I'm editing. These headphones work out great for me. They're only about 50 bucks on Massdrop. I'll put a link down in the description that'll take you out there. Definitely recommend this headset. Now the next thing up is my mouse, and this is the Hi-Rally F300 gaming mouse. I did a full video on this. I'll put a link up here in the description if you want to check that out. But just as an overview, this is a fantastic, affordable gaming mouse. It's got very high accuracy, totally smooth operation. The buttons are solid. I definitely recommend. I own 3 of these now because I liked it so much. I bought a couple more to keep in my bag and put in the other office. Now the keyboard is oldie but a goodie. It's a Razer Deathstalker. I don't even think these are available anymore. I couldn't really find a link to purchase one, but these are great keyboards. Pretty much any of the Razer keyboards are good. I've had this for several years and never had a problem with it, and I don't know. There's not much more to say about it. It's a great keyboard. Use it for gaming, use it for editing, use it for everything. It's been solid. All right, so we're almost done here. The next thing to talk about is my PC, and this is one that I custom built. It's got an i7-8700K processor, 16 gigs of DDR4 RAM, and a GTX 1070 video card in there. I did a build on this machine. I'll put a link up here if you want to jump out to that build video. And then the very last thing to talk about is the video editing software that I use, and I use DaVinci Resolve Studio. Absolutely love DaVinci Resolve. I was using Adobe Premiere, switched away from that because I didn't like the subscription. I love everything about DaVinci Resolve. I'll put a link to a video up here that I did of why I switched from Premiere to Resolve, and I give a little more information about Resolve. If you want to check that out, jump over there and see why I switched. All right, well, I guess that about covers it. I covered all the gear I use in the video, the gear I use to edit it, the software I use to edit it, and that's about all I got. Thanks so much for stopping by. I hope you found this interesting. I usually say useful and informative, but this was probably neither of those. Hopefully it was at least interesting. Please give me a thumbs up if you liked it. If you haven't subscribed yet, please consider doing so. Come see me on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. I love meeting new people over there and chatting with them as well, and I will see you in the next video.